Let's jump into the news.
Good evening, Mr. Listener, Alpha South American, all the ships and clippers at sea. Let's go to press flow.
Couple Kickstarter announcements up at the top here. I know I spoke about Darkest Dungeon, one of my favorite video games of all time. They are coming out with a board game. I am still a little on the fence about this one. I'm going to back it because I love the property so much, but I'm not a huge fan of the developer Mythic Games. I haven't really liked the games they have played. I don't want to speak without properly knowing enough about them, but my initial impression of what I have played or the rulebooks I have read is that the games feel a little underbaked and a little overproduced. But I'm hoping that this one will be perfectly baked. But the Kickstarter goes live on October 20th. That was announced. By the time you hear this, you will be a couple days away, if not a day away from this thing going live on Kickstarter. If it's interesting to you, check it out on the 20th. Another interesting Kickstarter, Spielbox. Spielbox is sort of the industry magazine for our hobby. And one of the reasons that they sell so well is that every issue of Spielbox that ships usually comes with a handful of exclusive promos, and they're usually for pretty good games. So this usually sells very well, but they have taken to Kickstarter for the last 2 years to kickstart your subscription instead of having a normal sort of magazine subscription. I imagine, it is a survival necessity for them at this point as a print magazine in the world. But the Spielbox 2021 subscription is on Kickstarter right now. Spielbox is spelled Spielbox. You're also able to buy all 7 issues from last year as well, with all the promos involved. The promos are for really big games. I mean, a lot of people love their promos. They have promos for The Crew and for Architects of the West Kingdom and Terraforming Mars. So anyway, check that out if you're interested. It's also a great magazine for our industry. And, magazines sort of have a different necessity at this point when we get all of our news immediately on Board Game Geek and other places these days. But it is nice to have a physical thing to read. And there are always great interviews with designers and publishers. So yeah, that is the Spielbox Kickstarter. There are 26 days left to go on that for the 2021 subscription.
Can I just say, though, really quick, that even though I totally appreciate where you're coming from, I, in doing a little research for the review for this week for Marco Polo 2, I was on BGG and doing, looking through forums for information, and it was such noise. A lot of people just asking for rules designations. I mean, everyone's being relatively polite. Nobody's taking anything to task or asking too big questions, but the signal to noise ratio was huge. And I just felt like I was like kind of drowning in just in not interesting information. And I would just imagine that a magazine like this could be, keep us like focused in on point. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. No, anytime a new game comes out, the page for it on Board Game Geek inevitably becomes a year-long slog of the same rules questions being asked by people who are a little bit too lazy to spend 3 seconds and see if the question they've already asked has been asked, and it usually has.
Especially when the actual rules for this game are so good. Like, that's well written. It seems very spelled out, even though there's a lot of exceptions. There's like not much need for errata if you just like read the thing. But like you said, it's not like, maybe people just want the quick fix.
Yeah. Moving on to some non-Kickstarter news. There are 2 new decks for wonderful Uwe Rosenberg games coming out soon. Agricola has a new deck coming out called the Dulcinea deck, which contains 120 new occupations and minor improvements. This is for the revised edition of Agricola. There were 1 million deck boxes that had been released for the previous version, but we've only gotten a couple so far for the new revised edition, and it is always nice to have new cards for Agricola. But more exciting to me is the second deck expansion for Newsfjord, a game that I think is criminally underrated in Uwe's catalog. And maybe my second or third favorite Uwe game of all time. But this is the Salmon deck. They already had the Place deck, Plaice, another fish, which I have, which is fantastic, which just gives more cards into the game. This has another 44 cards, but I think there is a good amount of solo cards in here as well. And they're also strangely adding 25 metal coins to replace the non-metal coins from the base game, which is an interesting thing to add in a deck of cards, but sure. Who doesn't like metal coins? But yeah, those are coming out sometime before the end of the year, if they're not out already. And of course, we are all very excited for Uva's new game based on beer. I forget the name of it right now. It starts with an H. But that Hallertau, yeah. We're still waiting for news of when we can get that in America. I think it's by the end of the year, but there are no pre-orders available yet that I have found anywhere. And trust me, I have been looking. I also want to give a shout out to Jennifer Slickburn, the pioneer, a host of our podcast, has a Twitch stream that I think anyone who listens to our podcast would be very interested in hearing. It is twitch.tv/Mayvina, which is MAY, V as in Victor, EENA, Mayvina. She wrote a post on Facebook that I'll read here. In my last segment, I talked about video games that could appeal to Euro gamers, and one of them was Factory Town. Jennifer streamed Factory Town last week. And she said that she'll be describing some things within the game that could be relevant to board gamers. You won't be asked to subscribe to the channel, as I'm a spotty streamer at best. And of course, there won't be any ads generated by me. Hope you can make it. I think she's definitely worth a follow on Twitch if you enjoy watching people play board games on Twitch video games on Twitch, as she is always going to be playing board game related video games, as that of course is her passion. So she's definitely worth a follow, and I think you will very much enjoy watching her on Twitch. Lastly, Fantasy Flight Games has announced a play and share campaign, which is I read it and I laughed, and not a happy laugh. This is an attempt for them. They want you to give a hashtag on social media called FFG Play and Share, wherein you tell stories of times you've played board games, because we are all missing playing board games with each other. I'm not really sure what the marketing purpose of this was, but I love that they sent out a press release saying that they're launching the Play and Share campaign, which I thought was going to be some gaming thing. And it's literally just them asking people to use a hashtag and share stories about their favorite board gaming stories online. Okay. I don't know.
You could always just start a podcast instead. You could just start a whole podcast. Talk about it.
Just read it. I was like, what is the purpose of? Okay. All right. Cool. Sounds good. There is a new expansion, speaking of FFG, to an underrated board game that I think deserves more attention. They did a new version of Sid Meier's Civilization a couple years ago, which I played and actually thoroughly enjoyed. I thought it was a really good sort of 3X Civ game, and sort of it based on the latest Civ 6. And it was fun and cool. But one thing I remember playing was like, oh, this could use an expansion. It felt like an expansion was held out of the base game. And now an expansion is coming. It is called Terra Incognita. I don't believe they have announced a release date for it yet, but I was just glad to hear that this game, which I don't think was a very big hit, and in fact can be purchased for a really reasonable price. I've seen it for $20 on Amazon before. So, and it's a big box game with a lot of stuff in there. So might be worth checking out if you are looking for a light to medium, let's say medium weight Civilization game. That's a lot better than you would imagine. Finally, the Golden Elephant Award, which is the Heavy Cardboard Year-End Awards for 2019. The winner was announced this week. I will read you the nominees: Barrage, BIOS Origin 2nd Edition, City of the Big Shoulders, PAX Pamir 2nd Edition, PAX Transhumanity, and Pipeline were all the games that were nominated for 2019. And I had a Twitter discussion with Edward, the host of Heavy Cardboard, and I was commenting on what an incredible list of games that is, and just how amazing a year 2019 was for heavy board games.
But it seems like that's where it's all moving towards, right? That's like the weight BGG is going up in rate. The people liking these games more. Those games are ranking higher and higher, right? Isn't that the?
I mean, I think the hobby's expanding, and as it expands in all directions, I think there are more players looking for light games, medium games, and heavy games now than there ever have been. So hopefully there's more of a market for everything. But out of that list, what do you think won? I will tell you, but I was wondering what you think won the 2019 Golden Elephant Award.
And this is Heavy Cardboard saying this, right?
Heavy Cardboard. They have a panel of judges. It's not like a People's Choice Award. It's them and their friends and their trusted reviewers.
Yeah, no, they have a certain like aspect to which they like, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they said City of the Big Shoulders. But I know how much we love Barrage, so I'm going to say Barrage just because. And although again, never played it, but it looks so incredible. I want to say Barrage, but I bet
they had the same selection as me for the best game of 2019. They selected Pax Pamir Second Edition.
Wow.
But there is not a bad game on that list. I commented to Edward and I said, there's not a game on that list I would rate below an 8. Mm-hmm. I mean, those are all, and some, I would say PAX 2E and Barrage are maybe 10s.
Yeah.
Like those, I love every single game on that list and I've played the heck out of all of them. So great list. And nice for PAX Pamir 2E too. And if you want to watch, they had a great video where they had Cole Worley, the designer, on, and they discussed it and they gave him his award. And you can find that on Heavy Cardboard's YouTube channel. That's all the news for this week. Hey, if you enjoyed that video, you very well might enjoy the other videos you now see being suggested to you on screen. Also, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, or subscribe to our Game Brain channel. Thanks so much.